Hi, I am here with Ryan Harris, the largest franchisee of Intelligent Office, and we've had the opportunity to kind of interact at conferences and over other business agendas and online platforms, and just wanted to get him on and have a conversation as to how he got here and what his background is. Ryan, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, Joe. Thanks for having me.
So how did you let's talk about your business background, right? Is how did you get into this space? Kind of what was your background getting into it? And we'll start there.
Sure. So, actually, the story of Intelligent Office, our Intelligent Offices, starts before I got involved. My dad was actually the original franchisee in Tucson in 2004 and Oro Valley in 2008. And he started Intelligent Office as a way of um, making money and to raise money for church projects. So he's actually a pastor full time as well. And this was a way where he could build a business and then use that for church efforts as opposed to having to do fundraising other ways. So growing up, I watched my dad kind of working two jobs simultaneously, building the business. And one thing I thought was interesting that I noticed at a young age is that he had weekends free. The business was generally Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. There's little things that have to be done over the weekend, but it was not something like a restaurant where you are in the office, or in the restaurant, in the business, away from family during peak family times, which I think was a smart move on his part. How I got involved, is I was involved actually in a biotech startup, got a couple patents myself, which got me in the door with this group that was licensing a bunch of DARPA tech. The end goal was a handheld device where you could scan a surface, see if there was any bacteria on it, and whether or not it was dead, live, or in spore form. And our end use was hospitals. So the idea was you could prevent hospital acquired infections by actually having a quantitative measure of how much bacteria was still on a surface after it had been cleaned. Ultimately, sales cycles very long for that, and I ended up exiting about a year and a half after we started it. Was looking at a couple options of other startups. My dad at the time was starting a different nonprofit and really did not have time for IO. So pitched me on buying into Intelligent Office and trying to build that up and see, how that goes versus starting from scratch, which ultimately I'm really glad that we did. My sisters, when they were in high school and college, actually worked for the business as well, did the books. My younger sister, Amy, actually spent a couple years answering phones at the office. So after I had been involved 6 months to a year, my sisters said they also wanted to buy in and get involved. So we built the business up where it could support the three of us, and then they all joined full time. So that's been really neat working with both my older sister and younger sister. We got lucky in that all of us have different skill sets. So we're not bumping up against each other. Everyone's got their silo and then overlap and work together where we need to. And since that time, we've gone from the two locations to now we've got six in two states, Denver and Colorado and Arizona. So in the Denver metro and down in Tucson. And it's been fun. It's nice and flexible. So I'm able to spend time with the wife and kids. My sisters are able to do the same. And it's a nice, clean business working with professionals. And it's interesting. The client, as you know, Gio, the clients that you get are wide ranging, which makes it interesting.
Wow, so many things to go. I did not realize that you were a PK. For those of you that
Yeah,
don't know, that's a
we're
pastor's
around.
kid. So how was it growing up? I mean, the background on your dad, right? Obviously, is how long has he been a pastor, and what was it like growing up around the church?
Yeah. So he was a pastor from 1994 to I think 2020 is when he retired. He
Okay.
had made a commitment for the church that he would do, I believe it was 25 years, and then the last 5 years be shepherding in the next generation and then retire and get out of the way, in his words. So it was interesting growing up. We moved actually from Texas to Arizona. My dad wanted to do church plants. He had a background in he was a stockbroker for Merrill Lynch for 10 years while he was going to seminary, but been involved in several other different business things. And apparently does not like the easy road. So Tucson was identified as one of the most, I don't remember the exact way they worded it, but had the biggest need, the biggest population that was unreached, and was considered one of the more difficult markets to go into where there was a lot of burnout among pastors. So my dad said, that sounds perfect. So praying about trying to find the right opportunity, actually was invited by a group of 12 that were starting a church to come and meet them. And they all hit it off, and it seemed like everyone was in alignment. So that started off as the Oasis Church, or Bear Canyon Community Church, then became Oasis. And then over the next 20 years, he was involved with 18 other church plants. So they would build the church up to be, 200-300 people, and then bring in another pastor that sometimes was there while they were building, and then split it. And they would go to another area to start another church. So a lot of times, because that's where your budget was going, is to reaching out. We were meeting in elementary schools, cafeterias, set everything up, tear everything down, which was interesting. As a pastor's kid, you're a little bit in the limelight, right? Anything that you do you weren't supposed to is public news. But I think my dad did a great job of shielding us kids from a lot of that. He was big on that he is the pastor, his family is not. So I think that was good. I mean, talking with other kids who were pastors' kids, they seem to run the spectrum there on how they felt, what was confidential and not. And then ultimately, about 10 years or 15 years into his being a preacher, he noticed that there were churches that kind of viewed each other as competition, where they weren't viewing it as we're all on the same team. So he started another nonprofit called For Tucson, which goal was to unify churches to go to areas that need help and provide that help. So they divided the city into different domains, being things like homelessness or education. They'd have schools that were C or D performing schools, and they'd go talk to the schools, see what they needed. In one case, it was tutors. So they got a bunch of volunteers from the churches around that had a background in education to come and be tutors to kids for free after school to help improve the quality of the school. So that was really neat to watch. There was a bunch of overlap with people working together, and that was also kind of cool to see. So he wears a lot of hats, as I probably figured that out.
So, I mean, the interesting part is the hospitality of a church is so much like the hospitality of running a co-working space, right? And so how has that helped you, and what's been the overlap there? And
Yeah, I think it's been helpful with the church. You have a wide range of population that's coming in, right? You get anything from your doctors and lawyers to bus drivers, janitors, and everything in between. So I think being able to learn who these people are, and getting to know everybody and their story, what's important to them, what makes them tick, what makes them tick, what makes them do what they do, was really useful coming into this business, because you also have a wide range of people with different objectives. Sometimes you get an attorney just coming in that's winding down his practice and wants to hold on to the last 5 clients before he retires. Other times you get somebody in there who's wanting to start a janitorial company and doing it all themselves while building the business, and they're in the growth phase. So I think just being able to relate with a wide range of people was immensely helpful.
and so kind of what was your school background? Where'd you go? I mean, obviously that's the other part I got from it. Now were you PK, but you were kind of a nerd.
Yeah. So I went to the University of Arizona, graduated from the Eller College of Business. I did a double major in business management and entrepreneurship. So their entrepreneurship program is actually run by venture capital guys and angel investors. So that was very helpful. They told everyone at the beginning, while you could still drop out, that you were either going to do A, quality work, or you were going to get failed. And the goal was at the end of the year that you would have a business plan that was viable to launch, or you would fail. So it was great learning experience, a lot of pressure, which I think was good, a lot of teamwork. So I think that was by far the most valuable year of college for me.
And so what was the transition from Texas to Arizona like?
Well, I was only 4. So I was too little to know much better, other than we didn't have fire ants in Arizona that we had in Houston, which
Hilarious.
I did have a good experience or two with fire ants. So 4-year-old me was fine with it.
So back to business. So as far as your sisters, you said the 3 of you have different skill sets. What are each of your lanes, if you will?
Yeah. So my older sister, Stacy, is our CFO. So she is very meticulous, organized, loves the accounting and that side of the business. My younger sister, Amy, is very diligent, great with training people, and she's our COO, great on the operations side and putting processes in place. I'm in the CEO seat. I really enjoy the where people and technology meet. So a lot of times we're testing things out together. Where if we've got a new product or a new um, tech toy to play with, we can make sure the napkin math works. Me and Amy will tag team it on how this would work from an operations and sales standpoint. And then if it passes that test, we'll loop Stacy in and start selling.
And so we briefly kind of talked about this before. So you're at 6 locations. What's your growth strategy?
Yeah. So right now we do have six. We've got a 10-year plan we put into place 4 years ago. Our goal is to have 10 locations, and we are trying to hit $10 million a year in recurring revenue. So we've got 6 more years to add 4 more locations and hit our revenue targets. So it's a couple different ways we could do that, whether that's cross brand or planting new flags or acquiring others.
And so is the goal to stick to Arizona and Colorado?
It's a lot easier if you have clusters, right? So you can fly one person in and help with multiple locations. We're not opposed to expanding out past that. Being in the same time zone would be helpful. So we're kind of looking at the western half of the US to start. But yeah, if a deal shows up somewhere else, then we'll figure it out.
So what is your favorite part of the business?
I like a lot of the puzzles around either the people and getting things where they need to go and selling side, or bringing in the new products to solve people's problems when they present themselves.
What if you had to talk about the one problem that came up over the last 6 months or so that was a big one, and how did you resolve that?
Sure. So we've had a couple of clients that had issues with proprietary scheduling systems and being able to log when we're setting appointments for them, being able to track that back. So we did a little bit of API work with them and had it where our activities were being logged in a Google sheet while other information they had proprietary was stored on their system, which gave everybody end-to-end tracking of exactly what happened, and they could still silo information so the right teams had the right level of visibility.
So kind of thinking through that. I mean, what's your back office look like? I mean, Google Sheets is obviously pretty novice. So how do you attack the back office side and of how you run the operation?
Sure. Well, we've got a strong team. We do a lot of phone and admin services for our clients. So we've got just over 20 people on the team right now. As far as back office stuff, I'm able to do some basic API work myself. We've been able to use Fiverr in the past if we needed something that was really done. But now between Zapier and the basic API tools that are out there, we can self-service a lot of that. So a lot of it's me.
A lot of it's you. So what systems do you use?
It depends what it is. If we're able to use just webhooks to move things around, that works. The easy button is just Zapier. So if somebody's got something they need connected to something else and they don't know how to do it, we just do it on our Zapier account, and then that's locked down and it just runs. If something breaks, there's a full audit log behind it and we're good to go.
That's perfect for someone that's not techie like me.
Zapier is pretty intuitive. It's just, you need a use case that's simple and you just flow chart it out and build it.
So let's kind of step back and talk about Intelligent Office. Obviously, not a whole lot of people have heard of it. It kind of flew under the radar. What, Intelligent Office, 50 locations?
Yep. I think we've got 54 or 55 at the moment within the brand.
And what would be your elevator spiel on kind of the product, the business model, if you would, of what an Intelligent Office is?
Sure. So Intelligent Office, really what we do is put a professional front end on other people's businesses. We're their professional place to receive mail, receive clients, have meetings. We can function as a pickup drop-off location. And we become a member of your staff where we're answering your phones your way, screening, announcing calls based on name, topic, keyword, setting appointments, taking payments. If you can dream it, we can do it.
You used that before, right?
Great line, because otherwise people will ask you and go down all these rabbit trails. And the answer is just, if you can dream it, we can do it, as long as it's connected to the internet in some way.
So virtual office is a big part of y'all's business, right?
It is.
And who do you see using that in a post-COVID world, right? I mean, I think there's been an evolution of what that looks like. And So kind of what is that package?
Sure. So it does vary by office. Some offices want to do more on the admin side. Some would prefer to do more just as the, mailbox money of a mailing address. We typically go after your professionals, lawyers, financial planners, CPAs. We have a couple startups, some tech companies, but our bread and butter is the people who have client meetings in the office, have that need to have a face-to-face conversation. Of course, Zoom is popular, but there's some things like signing a will or notarizing a trust, that kind of thing that have to be done in person, especially when your average demographic that's wanting that service done is older. So for us, we see that continuing. We saw some change in what types of professionals were using things or what rate they were using them at. We intentionally are not the cheapest on the market at my locations as far as mail goes. I know others would say that that's a mistake and we should try to get as much as we can at every price point. To us, we see it as a risk both to your Google My Business page and for fraud prevention. From what we've seen, the people trying to commit fraud are surprisingly cheap. If we're not the cheapest, we don't have to deal with a lot of them, which also has the benefit of making our CMRA compliance easier because we're not dealing with thousands of virtual office clients.
So that's actually a good one to bring up is the CMRA. How have y'all handled that? Have you had any issues? I mean, I think sometimes it varies based off of the market as to whether people have had, we'll call it an educated postal service provider.
Yeah, so it very much varies by office. It was really interesting at GWA. We had Carl join us from the post office and was able to give us some insight on it. We have seen and we did actually a poll related to that. It seems like everyone falls into one of two categories. Either it was smooth sailing and they got you what you needed and sent you on your way, or they stonewall you and tell you that they make your business model as strange and why would anyone use it? And they're not interested in filling out paperwork for you. So with Carl, what he said is we can reach out to him when we run into the latter scenario and he will make them do their job. For us, we've had 2 or 3 locations that were smooth sailing. I would almost even say pleasant. The post office employee knew what was going on, was extremely helpful and professional. We've had others where when we asked for the right person to talk to, they had a little bit of a yelling match in front of us about whose problem it was to deal with. And then whoever we ended up talking to signed a paper and then said they would do their part of uploading the 1583A to their post office website, which never happened. They're supposed to do it within 24 hours of receiving it. It's been 3 weeks and nada. So I think like everybody else, we're trying to comply. And from talking to Carl, it sounds like as long as we're making an honest effort and trying to get onboarded, that they're willing to work with us. They did say enforcement was supposed to start happening on the first of the year. That's 2025, that they're going to start identifying people who have made no effort to get registered with the post office and start sending them letters encouraging them to do that.
I like that encouragement.
Yeah, it's kind of a big flub they've got. If they say if you don't comply, they can give you a 30-day notice and just stop delivering any mail to your office, which is a problem.
Yeah, and that would be a problem, especially with as big as your virtual business is, right?
And then from a client management standpoint, there's a Peloto, iPostal, Alliance. It seems like there's a lot of different tools that are coming out for managing and staying on top of it. Currently, we are doing it ourselves. I'll tell you in 6 months if that was a good idea or not. Each one of those has a cost associated with it. And really the big benefit would be their API access into the post office database. So if they could do that, then they can automate everything. But right now, the post office has not released access to their APIs for that database. So we're all doing the manual entry thing. Pluto was clever and made a browser extension that'll help you do it. We have not run into enough pain yet that it makes us want to use the software and the cost associated with it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's funny as you talk to different people about the CMRA, what their struggles have been, and kind of how what their plan is to tackle it. But yes, you have an occasional person. It's like, well, it's not an issue yet, so I'm just not even going to deal with it. Where it's like it's going to be a major problem by the time you get there. So we'll see. How about kind of drop in day office meeting type of business? Kind of what's that look like?
Yeah. So we, at each of our offices, we have 2 to 3 conference rooms, usually accommodating between 4 and 15 people. Occasionally we have an office with classroom access or larger rooms. And those are available during business hours to anybody. So there's retail rates. Anybody could stop in, use them. We also have private offices that are set up for, 1 to 3 person meetings. So those are set up for, retail rate users. And then we also have a discounted member rates. So our clients have cheaper office rates and 24/7 access by default. So if you need to meet with somebody on a Sunday afternoon, you can do that.
Good.
If I can, one other note about the virtual office in CMRA. I think there is a big risk with Google if they're able to get access to that same CMRA database of them going and flagging our offices in bulk. And instead of treating us like a professional mailing address where clients can actually receive mail and entertain customers and meeting their definition, if they decide that they don't like us and want to treat us like PO boxes, they could suspend everyone's Google listings in bulk, and not just ours, our clients. So we are also sensitive to people who are using our mailing address that are not there. We do not want them causing fraud issues that then put us on the map for being tagged like a post office where they suspend all the listings.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because we had a conversation about some special visits that you've gotten from certain three-letter organizations because of some of the people that have tried using your space for creative purposes. What's been the most unique one so far?
Oh man, we had one interesting one that was a client that had a really good fake ID that apparently had escaped from incarceration for fraud and fake IDs. He had set up a dozen to 15 different virtual offices across the country and was continuing to perpetuate fraud. So we had a 3-letter agency come in looking for him or looking for information about his activities, which of course we complied with. But it is interesting. We've had a couple instances where we had government agencies coming in looking for somebody who was never a client, where they looked at virtual office providers, listed themselves on it, and then we're trying to fly under the radar that way. So we're pretty good at recognizing them at this point. Anybody who's got a business model that is not obvious that we don't understand gets some additional scrutiny. If it's something like small electronic repairs where they're claiming they're drop shippers, we've seen a couple instances of those that we think they were perpetuating fraud or moving narcotics. So it just,
Crazy.
yeah, it's just one of those things that you got to pay attention, and you owe it to your clients to protect the integrity of that office and that address. The last thing you want is your, clients in sensitive industries getting in the news for something that somebody else did at the same location.
All right. So back to personal. So what are some of your hobbies outside of work?
Like everybody, to spend time with the family and the kids. I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 10-month-old at home, so that definitely keeps me busy. Then I'm also involved in some shooting sports and occasional hunting.
Shooting sports. I think you are being very humble in your shooting sports scenario. I've heard you have quite the collection. And so when you say shooting sports, kind of what's your favorite thing to go out and do?
I got into it a couple years ago, precision rifle competitions. So it's definitely the nerdier version of shooting sports, where you're trying to put a bullet on something that's 1,000 yards or more away. It's challenging and it's constantly humbling. It's one of those things where if you ever think you're good, you immediately find out that there's somebody else 10 times better. So I've had the opportunity to do competitions across Texas, Florida, Tennessee, some national level, a lot just local level. But it's a great group of people. Everyone's, even though they're competing, a lot of them are helping each other too, which is fun. And I've actually picked up a client or two from that crowd as well. Turns out there's a lot of engineers, some lawyers, and some others that are involved in that activity as well.
Well, it's not a cheap sport, right? So there's definitely entrepreneurs and money behind it for sure.
Yeah, either they're fairly successful or Visa's their best friend. Hopefully the former.
Without a doubt. Does your family go out and shoot with you ever?
Occasionally, my wife did before kids. Now that's where she'd rather spend her free time, which I totally understand. My dad used to do it as well, so he's starting to get back into it with me, which is fun. So trying to get my father-in-law to come join us, but Some people have a lot of fun with it, others don't. That's perfectly okay, but it's kind of one of those things where if I'm having fun with it and there's other people who are curious, might as well give them a taste of it and see if they like it or not.
It's always for me. It's always interesting because the question comes up of gun safety and everything else. With young kids in the house, I've actually got I guess in 2 weeks I'm doing an all day course with a handful of my godchildren and their parents to teach them fire gun safety and self awareness classes and on just being situational aware of your surroundings and all that fun stuff. How has that process been having young kids in the house and firearms and everything else? I mean, how have you handled that education?
Yeah. So I think the safety is absolutely critical. You would be a fool to not have that at the top of your mind, especially with kids. So within the adults in the family, everyone is familiar with the rules of gun safety and treating everything as if it was loaded, leaving it where it's secure, like in a safe and away from kids. I think that's extremely important. And it's one of those things where if you have kids, especially get hurt, 100% of those are preventable, right? That's a negligent issue, not a accident. So right now for my son, who's the oldest, he's 4, he got a Spider-Man web blaster thing that sits on his wrist, which is the first Nerf adjacent thing that he's received. And he knows he's not allowed to point it at his little sister, any adults. He's only allowed to use it in a specific area, sticking darts against a window. And I think he's too young to really get anything past that point. As he gets older, if we start getting into Nerf guns when it's appropriate and he can demonstrate he's safe there, we're going to start with the firearm safety rules with Nerf and then go to a couple years later, go to BBs and then ultimately 22s and on to other things. But I think the safety is paramount, awareness of what you're doing and having him where he knows you don't point something that shoots thing at the pets or people or other toys you want to break. I think if you get that in foundational, then it'll pay dividends if he ever encounters a gun later on in life, that he'll be confident that he can safely interact with it or know that he shouldn't interact with it, depending on what the case is.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so important, right? And I think so often there's a misperception by people that gun owners are often negligent when the reality is, I mean, there's a process that we go through in order to be responsible. And obviously in most cases, we had to get licensed and we understand some of the protocols and obviously instilling those in our loved ones around us is incredibly important. So,
Absolutely.
I know that Zach had a great time shooting with you with nods on and everything else after the GWA conference, and Warren went out with you. I think you took Warren out 2 different nights, right?
Yeah. We were trying to see if we could get Zach's flight move back because we are going to do some long distance stuff. But we weren't able to pull it off. So we just did a night vision and lasers and all that good stuff. One night, had a buddy come out who had some other night vision and thermal and all sorts of stuff, just because it's cool and it's experience, right? So they were able to participate in that. And then the next day, later that afternoon, there was a competition that had to get done and get out of our way. Once those guys finished up, then we were able to do the long distance stuff.
Had Warren do.
Great. We got him on. He was able to hit a target at 1,078 yards for I think it's an 18-inch by 18-inch square. So pretty good poke. And variety of closer stuff, using some stuff that was purpose built, like a PRS competition gun, and then others that are not purpose built for that, but you can stretch it if you know how to do it.
So what were you shooting at? What was he shooting at 1,000 yards?
It was a IPSC, a steel target on a chain hanger. That's
No, but what was he firing?
Oh, that was a Accuracy International 6.5 Creedmoor is what we had in that. And then a Remington 700 that was a 6-dasher, which there's 2 ways you can get out far. You can just brute force it, right? Where you're pushing a heavy bullet and you just put a big charge behind it and push it hard, or you can go the efficient route. Both of those cartridges are more the efficient route, with the dasher being almost like shooting a 22. It's extremely efficient, not super fast, but it's aerodynamic, gets where it needs to go. So we didn't bruise Warren out.
Yeah, I've cheated. Anytime I've shot that far, it's been with a 50 cal. So I was definitely cheating.
Well, that's the brute force method.
Yeah. Boys and their toys, right?
Yeah.
It's always fun. So as far as the, I guess has it been a year now? When was Vast or when was Intelligent Office acquired by Vast?
Yeah, that happened at the very end of last year. So we are almost at the year. I think we're what, 10 months in now?
Yeah. How's it been to be part of a platform that has two other brands? And because part of what you mentioned is you want to get 10 locations, and I think you alluded that you're not married to just doing IO, right? You'd consider one of the other brands.
Yeah, it's been good. UFG, I think, has their a lot of processes in place that are good. We're able to benefit from some of the lessons learned in marketing for the other brands, which is good. They're also able to learn from some of our experience. We're also partnering on different services. So people who are a member at an Office Evolution that is in Shannon's locations or Diane's locations in Colorado are also able to get those member rates with my locations and vice versa. The Jason, I've got a ton of respect for. I think they've got a good team and they've got a path to get where they want to go strategically, which is great. I think with some of the other brands that we've been part of or VC groups that have owned the Intelligent Office brand, they've not quite had the same type of consideration of the larger plan, right? If we were in a group that had a different set of businesses around it that were completely dissimilar, it makes it where it's fragmented and we're kind of the odd man out. Versus with Vast, there's obvious, that we're in the right place there with similar brands. Before Vast and Bonus, it would have had to been IO, just with how the franchises and non-competes work. But now that that door is open, it does open up for their owners to look at IO and ours to look at them, which is good.
Yeah, I think it's always great when you can get multiple entrepreneurs looking at deals from different perspectives and individual experiences and backgrounds and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, I love interacting with the various franchisees and having conversations and just learning from them. So, and
Yeah, it was also really cool. The UFG had a big conference there earlier this year in Nashville. So some of the Intelligent Office owners were able to make it, which was awesome. But that had been the first conference that the IO brand had since 2017, I think.
wow.
So it's good to be able to see people in face, build the relationships, have dinner, which is hard to do when everyone's spread over the country and there's not a unifying event to get everybody together.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, I think that's the hardest part sometimes is trying to get these franchisees all in the same place at the same time. I mean, they're walking away from businesses, right? And so sometimes leaving that behind is difficult. And so it's always good to get like-minded people in the room together. So, I mean, that's what I love about GWA. How was your GWA Phoenix experience having it in your backyard?
Yeah, it was great. I had just moved to Phoenix 2 months prior. So it was convenient that I didn't know any of the restaurants. And now I know several because we were able to bounce around. So that was, speed running, getting used to being in a new city. It was convenient being able to pop over to GWA and then get back and tuck the kids in, which was fun. But great conference. I think it felt a lot more intimate than other ones perhaps have. I think Carl absolutely was fantastic for the CMRA portion.
Yeah.
I think that had the potential to become somewhat adversarial with everyone's frustrations with the post office. And I think he navigated that beautifully. And of course, it's always good to see all the vendors and friends from over the years and catch up.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool part is sometimes we don't always get to see people in it face to face, right? It's over the phone, it's over Zoom, it's over all kinds of things, right? And so being able to hang out with people and get to know them better is a big part of it. So that's part of what I love about it is the ability to continue building relationships.
Yeah. And that's what's nice with those extracurricular things like the shooting or something like that.
Yeah.
I know it can be a polarizing topic and we weren't willing to make anyone uncomfortable. So we kind of kept that small, but still it's building relationships and getting to know people more. It's always fun.
Yeah, without a doubt, for sure. And I'm excited. The immersive in New York is gonna be a lot of fun too. We'll have I was actually just on a call with with the team and trying to prepare for that one. So it's always good to be able to plan those things and get people together.
Yeah. When's the date on Immersive?
It is going to be December 12th and 13th.
All right. Is it
So
already
we
sold out?
down, see, almost. No, but it'll be a small venue. It'll be 80 to 100 people max. I mean, New York's such a big market that we should have no problem getting bodies there. But the other part and why we coordinated it is it's right around Christmas time, right? So you'll be able to go and enjoy the Christmas festivities at the same time as get some work done. So that'll be great. And so it's always fun to get to New York during that time of the year.
That's awesome.
So as far as kind of on the side, back to kind of your passions, I mean, are you involved at your church? Do you have nonprofits? I mean, kind of what's your time spent giving back? You mean being mission driven?
Yeah, we're involved in our church. We're actually the church we're part of in Phoenix is called CCV. It's spread out, but a very large group. It's actually my wife's childhood church. And one of the things they do for the community is they've got a big soccer league called Stars. They actually do soccer, football, a couple other sports. So you don't have to be a member of the church to participate, but we've got a bunch of different teams at different ages, and they all compete. So me and my wife are coaching one of the teams. So we've got a dozen 3 to 5 year olds boys on our team that are running around playing soccer, kind of. But that's been really fun. I think the parents are enjoying watching it, and it's good for the kids to be able to interact, get some social time, and have fun. So that's a big one. Then we also support a couple of other nonprofits, for Tucson being one of those, the one that my dad was involved in, and then a couple they're helping victims of child sex trafficking. So Red Light Rebellion's one of them. There's a couple around, but it's something that, there's a lot of pain there that help is needed. And it's something that they've got the structure in place. I don't. Just makes more sense to help enable them more than us trying to go and start another, competition where there's a, competition between nonprofits, which is not good. It's better to have one that's well-funded and is able to do the work.
And so what does that organization do?
So they're both working with the victims and they're in the prevention side. So, the awareness and trying to stop people from getting into it. So oftentimes that's runaways or there's something else going on at home. Oftentimes there's something tied in with the foster system one way or another. And unfortunately, it's kind of one of those things that's got a lot of social stigma still attached to it, right? Because it's horrible. So you get victims that are in isolation that are even more isolated than they were before. So you're already taking a subset of the population that's isolated, running them through something super traumatic, where then they're even more isolated.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's incredible how high those numbers are that we're just not getting to the point where we're talking about this stuff. You and I haven't had this conversation, so it's great that it's popping up. But so I am on the board of a nonprofit also called Operation Rescue Children. And essentially what this organization does is they train law enforcement and sheepdogs how to be able to go in and handle these situations, trains them so they're better equipped to go in and take down the bad guys, if you will. And so it's so heartbreaking when you hear these stories from the law enforcement side, right? As to what situations they find people in, and it's just so heartbreaking to hear those stories, right? And with my work coaching people, I've been able to work with people that have struggled through those things from various sides. But it's such a real problem in our current world that we live in.
Yeah, I'd be curious to learn more about the group you're involved with. Sounds like you're doing good work too.
Yeah, I'll send you some information on it.
It is one of those things that I think there's just, due to the nature of it, a lot of burnout around it. I've heard even the detectives and cyber crimes are looking into it have an average of a 3 or 4 year tenure before it's too much. So we got to fight it, but it's a terrible thing that exists that we have to fight.
Yeah, it definitely affects people, right? To be involved in it because of the stories and the magnitude of all that stuff. But thank you for your commitment to do all that work and obviously the awareness and pulling people in, because I don't think we do enough of it. There's a lot of people that hide and pretend like it doesn't exist. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's just a reality we have to face that's out there. And there's no way to, there's no way to change something you're not willing to acknowledge. Right.
Yep. And I think it's
Uh,
easy for people to, sweep it where it's not happening in front of them so they don't have to think about it.
yeah, no, without a doubt. And I think that's just bringing awareness and getting people to actually face it and be not only just aware, but willing to do something about it. And so I think that's a big part too. So last question. If your dad was sitting in front of you and was to tell you three things he loves about you, what would those three things be?
Ooh, probably resourcefulness. We and my siblings too are all pretty resourceful on getting things where they need to go. The perseverance side, I think, is something that's come up before. One thing we didn't talk about is medical stuff. I was born with a couple fingers that were jacked up on both hands, so I've had now 19 surgeries total, including hands and tonsils and all that. But that's been super fun. So one thing you learn if you get a hand operated on is you've got it down for 6 to 8 weeks. So you get to learn how to be left-handed for a certain amount of time. Then your left one gets cut on, you get to go be right-handed again. So that's something he has mentioned that he thought was cool. And then I think integrity is definitely big in our family. So I like you'd be proud of that too.
Yeah. I mean, I think we lack all those things right now in our current society. And so, I mean, but persistence and integrity are huge, right? And being able to overcome everything that's thrown our way and doing it in a way that we would be proud of, right? And those that we love would be proud of, especially being a faith-based person. That's a huge part.
Absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I enjoyed getting to know you better, and hopefully our guest enjoyed our time together. We'll post some of those links for those nonprofits. If anyone wants to dive deeper into them, certainly look into those links. And if you have any questions, give one of us a call. But Ryan, I really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you again.
Awesome. Gio, appreciate yours. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for having me.